friends, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing really well. So it's been quite some time since I've done a recent reads video, so we're gonna go over everything that I've read in the last couple of months. And as you guys know, I've been really struggling with my reading over the past year or so, and I'm finally feeling like it's starting to pick up to a more regular level. I'm getting more enjoyment out of my reading these days. And that has a lot to do with, number one, I'm getting more settled into my adult job. I'm trying to have more of a work-life balance and make sure that I'm enjoying my hobbies, like doing videos and reading the books for the videos, of course. And of course, I'm also feeling better since my operation back in July. So it had been, you know, actually over a year that I was having symptoms leading up to my surgery, and then of course it was all the recovery period and everything. So if you're on my Instagram channel, you'll know that I actually got my medical clearance this past week. So the doctor actually said to me, he was like, you know, you can do whatever you want and have a nice life. So I'm really glad that all of that is behind me and I can get back to doing the things that I love, having energy and feeling a lot better. So like I said, the reading has kind of come along with that. I'm not back up to my normal level of reading that I was about 1.5 years to 2 years ago, but it is coming along. And also the last time that I did, I believe, a TBR was for my birthday kind of TBR, and I wanted to read Ghostie books. I know we're into September now, we're doing Vamptember. I have my pile of possibilities for that, but I did read a lot of Ghostie books this summer, which was fantastic, and some of them were so good, and I really did enjoy most of my reads this summer. I don't think I had any DNFs. But I also want to talk about the ones that are in progress as well, that have to do with the sort of the ghost theme, haunted house theme. So yeah, let's jump into the recent reads. So this is everything that I read since the beginning of July. Actually, backing it up a little bit more, Matthew and I have been reading some audiobooks. He's been really enjoying them, and you guys know that we've been working our way through the Last Apprentice series. So right at the end of June into the beginning of July, we read book 3 in the Last Apprentice, which is Night of the Soul Stealer. So not really a ghost sort of themed book, but it has all of those sort of monsters and elements wrapped around into that story. Not one of my personal favorites, but Matthew did enjoy it, and he's definitely wanting to continue that series. Right now we're actually reading Frozen Charlotte, which is another one that has that sort of creepy doll, ghost story, haunted house sort of vibe, and he's really been enjoying that one. We're just a little bit into it. But as you guys know, of course, Frozen Charlotte and Charlotte Says are two of my favorite books of all time. So I wanted him to read Frozen Charlotte with me. And then after we're done that one, we'll get back to the Last Apprentice series. Just wanted to take a little break, do something different. But as for Night of the Soul Stealer, it was fantastic. It's a 3-star for me. Kind of the whole series is sort of a 3 to 4 star. It is one of my favorite series of all time, and I really wanted to share that with him. So now the nights are starting to close in a little bit. It's getting darker earlier. We're wanting to do coloring and building Lego and all of that kind of stuff, and we like to put on books in the background, so we will be continuing that. And then next up, I read The Whistling by Rebecca Netley, and this is a fantastic gothic book about a woman who is like a nanny. She takes her first nannying position after basically raising her younger sister, and it's she's from Edinburgh, but she goes out basically into the country to become a nanny in this grand estate, and the little girl that she's being a nanny for had kind of something traumatic happen to her, and she doesn't speak. So she hasn't found her voice since this tragedy. So it's right on the back of the book. Her twin brother dies, and then she basically loses her voice. She can't talk. She's gone through something traumatic. But the nanny, and of course it has all of the wonderful gothic elements of the grand estate and the secretive family. It does have one of the housekeepers who seems to have a bit of a dark past, and she really doesn't like this new girl coming in, this city girl that doesn't know anything about the country. But what I loved, I read this on my Audible, and the narrator had the most wonderful Scottish accent. And usually, like when I listen to my books, I do speed them up a little bit. I do usually listen to them at like 1.5 to 2 times speed. Usually, sometimes I'll speed it up even more if somebody is really droning on. But this particular book, I actually read just on the regular speed that it was meant to be consumed, because the narrator just had the most wonderful voice. And it has the spooky atmosphere, like I said, you know, out in the country in Scotland, and it's raining constantly, and this spooky moor. And it turns out that the previous nanny also went missing. So there's a lot of secrecy, there's a lot of town rumors and folklore and all of these wonderful things that are wrapped into, and it does have an occult element actually, now that I think of it. It's been quite a while since I read it, but it does have that occult element as well. So this really did tick all the boxes for me. Like, you know, it's gothic, it was read by someone with a Scottish accent, which made it more authentic, you know, the northern UK, a family mystery, a cult. I love that element of like the gothic with an occult aspect that's wrapped in around it, and witchcraft and all the things. So this is about a 4.5 star read for me. I kept it down from a 5 star because, number one, I think it could have been made a little bit shorter, especially towards the end. It was kind of dragged out a little bit, and I'm like, okay, get to the point already. So it could have been made a little bit shorter, and the ending was just okay for me. So it was the experience and the journey of the entire story more so than the ending that I really, really enjoyed. But if you haven't read The Whistling, I would highly recommend it, especially if you love all of the elements that I described. But of course, trigger warning, of course, for family grief and the death of a child. So if that bothers you, that is central to the plot. So, but it didn't faze me at all from the story, but just a warning there if you do have trouble with that. So definitely pick up The Whistling. It was 4.5 stars for me. Next up, I read a middle grade book. So I wanted to make sure that I read some Betty Wren Wright and some Mary Downing Hahn during these months. And I did read Wait Till Helen Comes by Mary Downing Hahn. I read it on my Everand subscription. So if you guys want to have a 30-day free trial to Everand and use my code, it is down in the description box below. No obligation, of course, but it is down there if you wanted to give them a try. And I you know, this was an okay book for me. It was about a 3 star. Unfortunately, I was reading this one kind of right at the height of when I was super stressed about my procedure. So it was just kind of a popcorn read. I can't remember a whole lot of it just because of the time frame that I was reading it in and what was going on in my life. But it was pretty good. The only thing, so this is about this family, and they're a blended family. So the mother has a boy and a girl, and the father has a younger girl, and she is very, very spoiled. She's kind of bratty, and she's always playing tricks and trying to get her brother and sister into trouble, and always kind of playing the victim and stuff like that. So she kind of befriends a ghostly girl named Helen, and you know, Helen is not very nice, and she basically warns her siblings, wait till Helen comes. So there's this whole ghost story element wrapped around it. So like I said, 3 star read for me. It is a middle grade book. It was just a very light read, and I really didn't like the little girl because it was just constant with the brattiness and whining and all of that kind of thing. Again, I read it on audio, but even more so than that, I hated the parents even more. So just, you know, the attitudes of the characters kind of took away from the story for me a little bit, but I still did enjoy it enough to give it a 3 star. So I will definitely read more Mary Downing Hahn. I've read a couple of books by her, and like I said, it's just those light kind of popcorn reads. And I did read a creepover book. So I read The House Next Door, You're Invited to a Creepover, number 16. So this is about some siblings who are having a New Year's Eve party, and the house next door is very, very creepy. There's a lot of town folklore that kind of wraps itself around what happened in this house. And then, of course, you know, you get a bunch of kids, they're all bored, it's Christmas time, and they're looking for something fun to do. And they start talking about all of the folklore and the ghost stories and everything that have to do with this house next door. And of course, somebody dares, I think they're playing Truth or Dare, and they dare somebody to go into the house. And of course, everything just kind of goes from there. So not a summer read by any means. Like I said, this is a New Year's Eve story, and I love just how cute it is. You guys know I have an undying love for the Creepover series. I love this series, and it definitely did have all the creepy vibes. It was a good adventure, and I really liked the interactions between the kids. I felt it was very relatable. It was very on point with how kids would behave, like at, you know, a downstairs sort of basement, no parents allowed kind of party, and you know, you have crushes between the boys and girls and all the things. So I thought it was very, very cute. I sat down and read it in an afternoon, and again, I will definitely read more of the Creepover series because I have an undying love for it. But overall, I gave this one 4 stars. Next up for my pick from Betty Wren Wright, I read The Ghost Witch, another sort of middle grade book, very, very skinny, sat down, read it in a day or an evening, and it's about this young girl who, her and her mother live in an apartment, and I think it's her grandmother dies, and they end up basically inheriting the house, but they have to clean everything up, and she really doesn't want to live in this house because her grandmother is super creepy. And her best friend end up spending some time in the house, and spooky things start happening. But what I loved about this one is it had a lot of heart, and it does have a Halloween angle in it, and you know, it just really has all of those cozy small town sort of atmospheric fall feels, with an old man that puts on a Halloween party every year for the kids in the community. You have a spooky old house with, you know, kind of a creepy old lady that used to live there, and you know, these girls are going in, they're having all kinds of experiences, and of course the mother doesn't believe them and all of that. So what I loved about this one, like I said, is the small town autumn feel. And it had a really great story towards the end. So it had all the spooky, and it had the haunted house feel, but I loved the end of this book so much. I love when something gives me just those really warm feelings, kind of like you're sipping on cocoa on a fall day. And I feel like this could be made into like a short DVD or a made-for-TV movie that revolves around these kids in this autumn sort of small town. And so I definitely will read, of course, more from Betty Wren Wright, but I wasn't expecting to enjoy this one as much as I did. It was a 4-star read. The next up was actually a nonfiction book, so I wanted to read something off my Ghostie shelf. There are other books that I still haven't gotten to that I wanted to read off my Ghostie shelf as well, but this one I also found on my Everand subscription. It's Horribly Haunted Houses, True Ghost Stories by Barbara Smith. And Barbara Smith is quite a popular author and folklorist here in Canada. She's written a lot of the Ghost House series books, but she also has other, I think Canada Ghost to Ghost, I believe, is hers. There's a few that I have by Barbara Smith. And one thing I love about this book, of course, is the purple cover. And I did actually find the audio version on Everand as well. So it was great because I was kind of one Sunday, Matt was out, I believe, and I was just kind of doing some light housework. I'm starting to get back into my normal activity level now after my operation. And I was folding clothes and just kind of dusting and cleaning my bathroom and stuff like that. And I put this on in the background. It's a nonfiction book, I believe I said that. So it's a kind of true ghost stories that happened, and they're not only Canadian. There are some that are American. A lot of them are Canadian, but I like the variety here. So there's personal ghost stories or personal paranormal experiences, if you want to call them that. So people's houses, people's personal sort of family ghost stories, but there's also folkloric ghost stories and kind of experiences that people have had at historic sites. Like at the White House, there's a ghost story that happens there. So I really liked the variety, like I said, from like, you know, just people's homes, and ones that are a little bit more steeped in folklore, and then you have other experiences from famous historic sites, which was great because you can research them and go experience those places yourself. So nothing over the top. It was just nonfiction ghost stories I had in the background while I was doing some housework, and it was wonderful, and it was a 3.5 star read for me. And next up is the most adorable children's picture book. It's called The Little Ghost Who Was a Quilt by Riel Neeson. And I was very kindly sent this book by one of my subscribers, Matthew, who lives out in the east coast of Canada, actually in my home province. And he sent it to me both as a birthday gift and a Get Better Soon gift for my surgery. And he got this off my Amazon wish list, which is linked down below. Of course, again, no obligation, but the link is there anyway. And it was so surprising. I didn't have any heads up that I would be getting it, so I was very emotional. But this was the most darling story, and I cried, and it just lifted my spirits. It lifted my heart so much. So this is about a little ghost, obviously, who's a quilt, and he's not like his mom or dad because they're both sheets. His grandmother was a lace curtain, and all of his friends are sheets, and you know, he kind of gets made fun of, and he can't fly around like his friends because he's very clunky and he gets very hot. But it is the most darling story, and it's very heartwarming, and it's very like a coming of age story. It's kind of like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer kind of story, and I loved it. It's 5 stars. I mean, I love reading children's chapter books. It just, especially with the world that we're living in right now, you know, I have to be an adult during the day with my adult job and everything, and then of course my health was not in a good place and I was recovering, and this just really lifted my spirits. So I love children's picture books, and I'm really glad to have this one, and I'll definitely be hanging on to it in the library. One book that I'm still working on, and I'm just, it's a collection of short stories, so each chapter deals with a different subject, so I'm just kind of taking my time and reading them as I'm going, and that is Hidden Haunts England by W.J. Gilbert, and he is the host of the YouTube channel Airy Edinburgh. So I did read his other book, Hidden Haunts Scotland, and absolutely loved it. It's fantastic. So now I'm reading Hidden Haunts England, and I'll definitely be reading more from him, and I absolutely love his channel, Airy Edinburgh. If you haven't experienced it, I will leave it linked down below. He tells the most fantastic stories, and it's very calming, and I love his voice. So I almost wish that I had gotten this book on audio and that he read it, but I did get it on my Kindle. But what I love about his series is he goes kind of really in depth of a particular place that the ghost story happens. So for example, like at a hospital that was you know, really popular during one of the wars, he'll go into like the war, the history of the hospital, what happened there, and then the ghost stories that are kind of wrapped in and weaved into that history. So I do have a degree in history, so I love reading historical accounts of places like that. I'd love to go to the UK. It has the most wonderful history there, and but I will definitely be reading more. I mean, right now, like I said, I haven't finished it. I'm about halfway through, but it's definitely shaping up to be kind of a 4-star read for me. Okay, so let's talk about the book club books. So I actually didn't get to do a wrap-up of the July book at the beginning of August because of my recovery and everything. So just last week I did do a double wrap-up of the July and August picks of the book club. So for July we read The Swallow, a Ghost Story by Karis Cotter, who is a Canadian author living actually in Newfoundland now, but this particular story takes place in Toronto in the 1960s, and it revolves around these 2 girls, Polly and Rose. They live in houses that are next door to each other. Polly comes from a really large family, boisterous family. She feels kind of invisible because she's, you know, kind of sort of that middle child, and everybody's freaking out about everybody else. And then Rose, who lives next door, her parents are never around. It's just her and kind of her housekeeper. She's very subdued. She's very introverted, where Polly is very extroverted. And they meet and befriend each other. Polly wants to see a ghost, but Rose does have the ability to see ghosts, and she just doesn't want to see them anymore. So they befriend each other and actually discover Rose's name on one of the headstones in the adjoining cemetery that's in, I think it's behind their houses. And it's a fantastic story. I enjoyed this story more than I thought I would. It was a little bit dragged out in the beginning with the story development, and then everything kind of happened boom, 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 boom right at the end, which, you know, sometimes I wish had been spread out a little bit more, but it definitely didn't take away from the book at all. This was, say, a 4.25-star read for me. There were a couple of things I would have changed. Definitely not my favorite read of the year, but one that I thoroughly enjoyed. And if you would like to watch the spoiler discussion, I will have that link down below for the live show. So it's just me kind of yammering on, and there's a few people in the comments who are putting in their thoughts. So I would definitely recommend this one, especially if you like sort of that middle grade ghost story, heartwarming coming of age. It's very coming of age for both girls, and you know, it did make me a little bit sad at the end with what was going on in the story, but it was fantastic, and I will definitely read more from Karis Cotter. I believe this is my 3rd or 4th book that I've read from her. And then the August pick, which we also discussed in the live discussion, was The Shadow on the Wall by Jonathan Aycliffe. And this one for me, you know, it was the way it was written and the atmosphere, that gothic atmosphere, was really, really good. It was all there. But I found the story and the characters to be a little bit dull. Both of the main characters, because I think they both had names that began with an A, and I kept getting them mixed up, and I just found that, you know, they were super, super dull. It wasn't much going on, and it wasn't until about 2/3 of the way through the book, when one of them actually ends up getting engaged, that it actually started giving him a little bit more personality, and I cared more about the fiance, who was a minor character, and her son, more so than I cared about the main plot that was going on. So I know I said before that I love stories with that gothic and occult element kind of wound into together, and this did have that. I just wish it had been developed a little bit more. I found that, you know, when we found out what was kind of going on, it sort of just skimmed over it. So here we're learning of this, he's not a pastor, but he's like a priest who's at this church, Thornham St. Stephen, and he's renovating it. He comes across the mausoleum of a cardinal. It gets disturbed, and then of course spooky things start happening. He starts experiencing a haunting, and he ends up dying under mysterious circumstances, and his brother and a professor are trying to figure out what's going on. Like I said, there has very much an occult element wrapped in around this, and I really did enjoy that, but it didn't concentrate enough on it for me. Especially when they uncovered everything, it was just sort of glazed over, and it went back to just, you know, more of the subdued part between these two guys. So I didn't enjoy this one as much as I would have liked. You know, I'd say it was a 3-star, and I would give it that for the fiance and her son, and kind of like the way it was written as well. I did really enjoy the atmosphere, and the narrator did do a good job. I also read this one, I believe, on my Audible. So on to September now for the book club. I am currently reading A House of 100 Whispers by Graham Masterton. Not done this one yet. I'm reading it this month for the book club, which we'll do the live show at the beginning of October. But so far, I think I'm about 19 or 20 chapters into 47. And it's fantastic. I think so far, this has to be one of my favorite books so far that I've read this year. And this one does also have all kinds of wonderful things wrapped in around it. So we have a spooky house. There's a father who dies, and his 2 sons, their wives, one of them has a little boy. They come to try to like divvy up the assets. They read out the will and all of this kind of stuff. And one of them, their little boy, ends up just vanishing. Basically, he just vanishes into the walls, if you want to put it that way, of this house. I don't even know what's happening. I'm just quoting from the synopsis. But there's ghostly pushes and shoves and whispering. There's witches and fairies and the devil and a cult and what was going on with the dad, and he kind of went crazy and all of this kind of stuff. So very, very much that gothic with an occult angle, and I love that. I'm just gobbling this book up. I only started it a couple of days ago, and right now I'm actually doing a 30-day walking challenge, so just trying to get back to my normal activity level after surgery. I said, well, for the first 30 days, I'm going to walk every single day outside, and I've been going out super early in the morning. I'm usually up and out by 4 a.m. and it's very brisk. It's still dark. The leaves are falling, and I'm listening to this spooky book. So it's just making my whole life right now. And I really hope that this story keeps up to the level that I'm enjoying it all the way through. So this is shaping up to be one of my favorite books of the year. But like I said, still working on it. And I'll do the live show for this one at the beginning of October. So there you guys go. That's everything I read recently. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books and if you like them, didn't like them. And obviously, if you have any gothic books with that occult element kind of wrapped in around it, that's very much my jam these days. So you can leave them down below. Otherwise, give me a thumbs up and leave me a question down below in the comments, because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky, everybody. Bye.